Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lounge. Today's episode is going to be a little bit of a shorter one. Not so much maybe for the length of the video, but more so for the stack of comics. Still, 4 I had at least picked up here in town, with a couple, of course, off of eBay. With one of them is obviously a title that I've just been sticking with for a while, and you should already know. It shouldn't be that much of a guessing game. However, the other comic that I picked off of eBay is going to lead to a bit of a rant. Not super harsh of a rant, but definitely more of a big critique, and it's something we've at least been through quite a bit. So, without further ado, I will get to all of these right after this. As you can tell, there's about 6 comics in total, so not going to be a whole lot of big discussions. At least a few will have at least a decent discussions, but for the most part, the length is going to be for the second comic that I picked off of eBay, and it's mostly towards packaging because of, just like me and everybody else, we've been through situations where we've bought something off eBay and it obviously arrived in the most weird or sometimes most careless packaging, and to the point to where the minute you open it, you'd be dreading, oh boy, is it going to look really bad? It's going to look really bad. But sometimes you'll be lucky enough to see that it's at least arrived decently still. Given the packaging, you expected a lot worse, but not really. But still, that's not what you expect, and I will get to that comic. So we've all been through that. However, before I get to that comic, let's get to the first one that I got off of eBay, and these are normally ones that I pre-order ahead of time to make sure that it arrives fairly early. And it's a title, as you can already, if you're coming up with your good guess, you've guessed correctly. It is, of course, Spawn 370. This is the Ferruccio Melee variant, which I hope I pronounced that name correctly. I forgot who did the A variant, but the reason I went with the B variant, the Ferruccio Melee, is because of I don't really see a lot of Spawn comics that has this kind of aesthetic where it looks kind of spooked, way more kind of like almost like Dracula. I know there is one. I know Puppeteer Lee has done some very, very cool, but his always come across as more closer to like Ken Kelly or Frank Frazetta, which are actually are related to each other. But newer artists, this might have a little bit, but it's just, again, it's got that almost oil painted feel to it, like the Puppeteer Lee artworks that he has done for Spawn. But man, this just had a cool aesthetic. It was a very unique one, and I like to go for the more unique looking Spawn covers. Rather than just the regular ones. Again, I love Brett Booth, who's, again, been killing it. I feel has been killing it on this title. Of course, he's been around for a very long time, especially, creating Backlash or something for Image Comics back during the heyday, or at least would be considered the heyday of Image Comics in the 90s, but Image is still going on great. There's not really a super low period. There has been, but not to the very extent of that really put the Image out of business. Because again, Spawn and to an extent Savage Dragon have been definitely one of the longest running titles that really at least kept the company running. But still, when it comes to variants, the reason I go for variants is because sometimes, at least it's an option to me. It's an option because of sometimes I feel the main A cover stuff normally sometimes it's not always as appealing to me as, for the most part, the B variant. So I like to get at least the cover that I want in my collection rather than just buying 2 copies. I don't want a cover of each. I'll make an exception unless someone gives it for free, like it happened with 363. So that one I was able to get the A cover variant for as like a freebie for just supporting one of the the comic sellers on eBay. Still, every once in a while, for the most part, I'll just stick with the cover that I feel is best for my collection. That's how I go about it. Still, that's all. Just finally glad to at least get Spawn 370. So I pretty much made it to 370. Now it's on to 371 through 380 to get that kind of run goes. Still making it to 400. Hopefully we get to a 400. But still, this is very, very cool nonetheless. So, Spawn 370. Alright, so here we go. Here's the second comic. This might take up a bit more of the time of the video. But as if you were kind of curious, I've been kind of dipping in more the Luther Manning Deathlock character because I had previously picked up Astonishing Tales number 27, 28, 29. Not 29. That was the Guardians of the Galaxy reprint story or whatever that was originally printed in Marvel Superheroes. I think like number 17 or something like that. Either way, I skipped number 29 and went to number 30. So, again, mostly the Deathlock story issues. So, here and there, I've been at least going after some of the appearances like that were kind of outside of the Astonishing Tales. And one of the ones that I didn't really have was this one. This would have been printed in between Astonishing Tales issues 35 and 36. Goes to the end of that run, actually. But it's a Marvel Team Up number 25. 46. Excuse me, 46. This would be the first ever meeting between Luther Manning and, Spider-Man, Peter Parker. And eventually there would be another story like around Michael Collins for Spider-Man, like number 22 or something like that. Or is it like number 21? One of those issues where it was like Spider-Man and Deathlock. It was drawn by Eric Larson. So, this is the one I had, and I have been looking for copies online, at least decent, that looked decent shape, that at least was around an affordable price. I found this one. It was around $7.88 or whatever, $7.88. Of course, on top of shipping, it was going to bump up to $8.66 or whatever cents. And again, it was free shipping, and really, if you look at all the other copies around $3 to $5 with the shipping being, let's say, $4 to $5 or whatever, it would come about around the same price to begin with. And yet, it was one of the better looking ones. So I was like, all right, I'll get it. And it took a while to show up because it was coming out of Illinois. And then finally made it here at least maybe a couple days ago or whatever. But I was a little bit surprised in the packaging that it showed up in. And I got to bring this up because of, again, even though you probably hear it a lot of times, because I'm not the first one, still, it's just something, gotta have to, but this is what it ends up showing up in. This is all you got for the packaging for that particular comic. Sure, the comic may have not been like a high grade, still, this is what you decide. And so while I'm kind of shocked that the book didn't arrive super damaged because of comparing the pictures, it's about as close to what it still looks, but still I'm surprised that it was able to look at least about the same as what I seen on the photos, which I'll probably show you the photos anyways from the eBay seller. I'm not going to show the name of the seller. I'm going to be as professional as possible so I don't try and dox someone. But still, this is what it ends up arriving in. And still, of all the books, when I buy the comics, most of the time when I was buying buy comics off of eBay, I don't know, I'm completely jumbling it up. But like my Spawns, the new issues of those, and so on, it at least arrives in these, which are these Gemini mailers. And so, when they arrive in these Gemini mailers, I know sometimes you can botch a Gemini mailer, but so far I've had good luck with the Gemini mailers, and everybody who has packed them in these, they always appeared in at least the condition that you see on the photos. They come in the condition that you expected them as they were being listed. They at least show up right, even if they're not high grades, even if they're close to low to mid grades, they at least show up in these. And when they do, there's not any more defects being created as during shipping. There is none of that. No problems that are being further created. But when you are shipping in this type of crap, that's probably the most PG cuss word I can use right now. But when they show up in this state, you are pretty much, you are basically paying for a disaster to happen is what it is. And I think another thing that should be noted that when you're buying on eBay is, yes, keep in mind, not every seller is going to list of how they're going to package the comics. And so far, I've had decent luck with how they would package, especially with sellers who don't list for how they're going to pack your comics, like I said, bag and boarded, and they don't list the Gemini mailers. Still, you at least are still supposed to at least somewhat expect some sort of good packaging. But when you get to a seller who doesn't list of how they're going to pack your comic, they're not going to bag and board them, and then they ship them out in that type of packaging, whereas it's just the flimsy, even though it's bubble wrapped. Let's put it this way: it is bubble wrapped, but still, when the cardboard is about bent like this, look at that. It's about bent. You're lucky that the comic doesn't just show up with worse defects than what you had originally looked at before you purchased on eBay. Before you hit that add the cart and then pay out with PayPal, whatever is your payment, method. And it's unbelievable. And you still get this. And so this part of the video should just be as another PSA to anybody who's beginning to sell on eBay. If you're going to sell comics and you're going to look into how you pack your comics, use the Gemini mailers at least. Pay the money to buy the Gemini mailers. It's an expensive hobby, people. It is an expensive hobby. But for an expensive hobby, you got to also pay the money to make sure that you ensure that the buyer is going to get the best protection for their purchase. There, end of rant. That's lazy. If you're going to be that cheap, then maybe don't even sell comics at all. Look into something else. So, that's it for the stuff I got off of eBay, the Spawn and the Marvel team-up. So, let's get the next ones that I got at the shop. This one I seen the last time there, but I was always curious what they were selling it for. I was actually surprised for the cheap, but then again, the comic is definitely pushing to a very low mid-grade copy, but still I don't see a lot of this original run very much. But is Black Lightning number 5. This, of course, is the second meeting, between... It's basically a continuation of number 4, which saw the first meeting between Black Lightning and Superman, but it also would be seen as the second appearance and first cover appearance of the Cyclotronic Man, which is our villain right there on the cover, who is pretty much holding Superman captive, basically. He has got hold on him. So, there you have it. And again, Trevor Von Eden as who is one of the main creators of the character, and of course, always gonna bring up the writer. Is it normally it was Tony Isabel, but I know he goes by a different name these days. I'm not gonna get into all of that, but that should be self-explanatory. Still, very cool. Again, it's more of a low mid-grade copy than a high mid-grade, but it's not certainly super low mid-grade. It's still very presentable, other than the little marking there. But you know what? I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna give it a pass. I don't see these Black Lightning issues a lot, especially this was during the whole DC Comics implosion, the DC implosion of the 70s. So there you have it. It's still really cool nonetheless, and I could not pass up on it. Finally, since the shop had been re-going through a lot of their books and therefore even looking into rechecking the prices on eBay if their current value, let's say their older current, whatever price they've had for years is at least up to the current value, whatever, or what they're currently going for on eBay. And so that obviously was going to lead to a lot of price changes. And thankfully for these price changes, I finally was able to try and grab these, even though they're not perfect condition. They're more good mid grades, whatever. But I've been wanting these. But so far, 417 is the only issue that was missing, because that's the first part into this, and it serves as the first appearance for the KG Beast. So what I'm referring to is Batman's 418, 419, and 420. The final part in this sort of start, which is the 10 Nights of the Beast. Originally, they were marking these at, I couldn't get over it, especially for the condition, close to $10. But with their recent overhaul of all their prices and rechecking every bit of what they've got in stock, they marked these comics down to $3 each, and so it was the chance to get them. And what's cool is they are newsstand editions, even though I'm not the super biggest newsstand collector, unless it's for certain titles that I want, or if that's all they got and I'm very curious in getting them, I'll go with it. But for the most part, I try to at least get some at least direct editions from the 80s. 90s is where I care more about the newsstands, really. It's mostly the 90s I care about newsstands. But the 80s, it just depends on what I'm able to find or what I'm able to afford. But for the most part, it's always fun when I find direct editions from the 80s. But it's still late 80s. Is kind of bordering, but it's still not super important to find newsstands. But it would be important if you find them in really good condition. But again, this would be the second appearance of the KG Beast. And of course, by 419, it would be the first cover appearance when he at least still has his hand. Before eventually by 420, after he cuts his hand off, is when you get the actual appearance of the KG Beast that we've now all come to know and maybe love and so on, where he replaces it with the sort of gun or shooter with a little bit of the knife that kind of sticking out of it, the more iconic KG Beast look. And again, one of the reasons I wanted to really get these issues anyways, and sure, it's written by Jim Starlin, and the interior is being drawn by the late Jim Aparo, but man, I got these mainly because of the beautiful Mike Zeck art, and especially when it comes to 420, which might be my favorite of the covers of these ones, just because of that right there is prime Mike Zeck right there. Just that entire art, just the depiction of the intensity and the overall danger of what Batman is going through and subduing the KG Beast. It's just got a lot of intensity. That's Mike Zeck right there, people. It's just awesome. But yeah, these are more like mid-grades at best to maybe slightly pushing me in lower mid-grades because they're not in perfect condition. There's definitely some defects. There's definitely some quality miss, and dip. But still, for $3 each, that's perfect. And yes, I think these two, for some reason, I think have some cutting, but that's not, I don't think, from the person who previously had these books before they sold them. It's obviously more of a factory defect than an actual major defect from a seller. So I feel like those don't really count too much. Still, I finally had to pull the trigger, and I just a bit ago I ended up putting an order on 417. So and it is a newsstand. It is in pretty good condition, by the way. Very good mid-grade copy, and so to kind of at least to be compatible with my newsstands for the other Batman. So there you go. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Again, this is all the comics I pretty much was going to show you for today. I ranted about packaging from very lazy eBay sellers, and of course going on about Spawn and so on. If you have any thoughts about any of the comics I showed you in this video, you can all leave them down in the comments section below. But if you are just interested in the stuff that I do show you on this channel and you haven't been subscribed to me, not only is it going to do me great, but it's going to do you great, because once you hit that subscribe button, you'll never miss out on any brand new content. So until then, I hope all of you enjoyed. I hope all of you have a good Thanksgiving. And so until then, take care, everybody, and I'll see you back during the month of December with some very interesting videos. Take care, everybody. I'm happy to have Marvel Team Up number 46, but at the same time, it still shocked me that all of a sudden it showed up like that. Like, yes, it's not in near mint condition. It's at least a good or decent mid-grade, but still, don't pack it like that. Use at least bag and board it, and then use a much better cardboard method. Not that. That is so stupid. That's lazy.